There's some hello, let's wait a little bit until others join us and then we'll start. Okay, I think we can start. Hello everyone. Today we'll continue working on the presentation about web development. So once we've gone through all the main things for introduction into HTML, we will do some some things, some examples with the practical code in HTML. So then let's continue. So we still finish with headings, and I already mentioned about some headings, but yeah, this is the part of HTML where we can actually define the tags used for the headings. So basically, it means just highlighted special text place where we can have the text formatted in the larger way, and which is highlighted. And as you can see here, we have H tag, and after H tag we need to place the number. The number can be from 1 to 7, and it basically means that if the number is larger, then the actual heading is smaller. And so this is basically how we can define the size. And in this case, it goes from, so the largest one is 1 and the smallest one is 7. Also, yeah, headings can be configured. I mean, the styles, the size of headings, and also the format of headings. Because there may be some tricky things like the cases. So there is such possibility in HTML, like you type the text in normal case, like first letter. I mean, any case, yeah, it can be. But using the styles, you can actually configure the way that it will be displayed as the text in uppercase or in lowercase, or just any case you find. So it can be configured in HTML. So basically, heading is just the marker to the heading text. In fact, it can be configured in the way we want. By default, yeah, it has some configuration, but it can also be changed by us. Right, then we have the aligning text, and from my experience, this may be a little bit tricky point, because some configurations in HTML requires us some more tricky work on the aligning, especially if there are some margins from one place to another, from right or from left, or from top and bottom, and this may trigger some aligning issue for the developers. But normally, if there's nothing, configured in a crazy way, then we can use align parameter. So this is not the tag. This is parameter, an attribute of the here it is mentioned about paragraph and heading texts. In fact, aligning can be done for other tags as well. We will see such examples. And yeah, so basically, when we use align, then we can align it into the corresponding way. Sorry. So for example, in center. So it means that if you type something like this, H1 align center, then the text. So it means that the text will be aligned center to current line. Yeah, for HTML, as for everything, we can add the comments. The comments can be defined using a person mark, exclamation mark, and then we just put the dashes and the comparison mark at the end. So basically, this is the way where we can place the text, and this text will be considered as the comment. So it means that it will not be displayed on the screen. Otherwise, if you don't do it, then if you just put something random with the text and you do not put it as the comment, then it will be displayed in maybe not the best way, but it will be displayed on the screen. But they are useful to reference if you want to put some explanations. Then it basically works the same way as all the comments do in all the programming languages and also the files. Then there's such famous blinking tag that's almost, at least I haven't seen it anywhere in my experience. That's the best. It's best to switch from more Explorer or not at all. It's basically just for Internet Explorer, but as you know, Internet Explorer is almost deprecated right now, so almost no one uses Internet Explorer. So basically means that the features for it are not needed anymore. So blinking is not the tag we can normally use. Then we can also define then we can move to page formatting, and for the page formatting we can also provide the background color as the attribute of body. Also most of such things like page formatting and the styling is done using CSS. We will talk about CSS a little bit later. Of course we can also use the attributes, but mostly we use for the formatting we use CSS. For example, if you we can also use the attributes and background color. This will basically and the base font tag then means that the text here will be with the background color black. Text will be white, and the font size is 7 for this text. Then we go next, and the next quite important thing is inserting images. So again, since you remember that, as I said, everything what you see on the screen is HTML page. Not on the screen on the web page. Is based on HTML. It can be generated from somewhere, but at the end of the day, it's HTML. And so using basically the text you write in HTML, you actually provide some references. They basically provide the text, and this text is parsed by the browser, or usually by the browser, and then it actually does all the commands written there. And one of such commands is the image tag, and it basically means that again it does not have closing tag, because this is the image. You can not start and close the image. You can just simply put the image, and the image can be inserted using ing tag. And the same as for the linkages, we will go through them a little bit later, to provide the path to the actual file. If it's like this, if it's image, then it will be the path to the image. If this is something else, you also provide something else here. But using the source, always using the source, you provide the path to the file. And regarding the path should be in the current folder. Not in the current folder. from the perspective of the current folder the file is opened. Like you open the file in the folder B, then the path should be provided from the perspective of folder B. So that would be open the folder. So if you have a folder here, so then you create the file here. So within the file something like text, or also can be the image. So if your HTML file is placed here, then the path will be file.txt. If you another folder here, and you have the file here in the file txt, then the path would be inner folder slash, and here you will have the file. So basically from the current folder perspective, you should provide the path. Also an extension as usual. Then for the image you can provide the width and height. That's also makes sense. And here you have the attributes. Basically, it can be it's adjusted size based on your image page. We will check how we can configure it. Then we have the attribute border, which provides the actual border for the images. Such attributes can also be, they're usually defined using the CSS. But basically, CSS is just a way how it generates all these attributes at the end of the day. Basically we can use the attributes as well. Then we also have the AutoContext for images. So basically, if some browsers don't support images, which would be quite rare case, but such possibilities are also possible, then there's such tag out, which means that this is the text. If the image is not supported by the browser, then instead of the image there will be just the text here. Then we go to the wings, and this is quite interesting thing, because using the wings you can actually basically this is the way how you provide the navigation, and so here you can move from the current page to another page, and like if you want to send something, you want to just simply navigate to another page, then you use the wings. And for the wings we use a tag, and then we use href. So basically under the href attribute, this is the actual place where you provide the link. The content, the file you provide here is actually the path to the file to be opened. If you type the full link with www to something, that's also the path to another file, and to another file, and you can also provide it here. And the path works the same way as it works with the images. So if you have the file to open, like it's HTML file, then you actually press on it, then you provide just the path from the perspective of the current folder this file you're currently in, So the path should be provided from your perspective from this folder. I would like so the one really important point to know here is that lots of web frameworks use the routing. So actually, what does it mean? It means that the text written here, the link, it may be not just a simple link to the file or to the web page, but it can also be something like to enable editing. It can also be something like this. So it's also possible, and in this case you can see that this is not the page, but such references are configured and are defined by the routings. So there's such thing like routing, and what does it mean? It means that somewhere on the server, on your computer, on the current folder, which actually represents the web page. So basically, where the content for the web page is stored. There may be the code. It can be Java code or PHP code or anything else, JavaScript as well. Then where actually we can define the path we provide here, and based on some logic, this will be transformed to the actual link to the real file. So that's also possible, but yeah, this may be a little bit more complicated thing. But you may see something like this in the real environment. Right, and yeah, of course, the label for the link can be defined as well. Yeah, so in above link, so that page HTML destination where we navigate, and yeah, it specifies the address of the web page when you click on it, and then just basically to open your new file. So some examples would be if you just provide the full link to CNN. Yeah, basically this will navigate you to the file. From the browser perspective, you have www, and yeah, you have the domain. So this will basically, as all the domains work, domains are linked to the actual server where the website is placed, and on the server you define the file where we navigate when we actually press on the link. So not on the link, but on the domain. So what does it mean? It means that this domain is linked to the file, the actual file placed on the server where the website is located. And basically, when you press on the link, it means that it actually navigates you to the file, which is placed on the server, and then based on the logic there, the content for the website is generated. The same for all the domains. So at the end, you will have the actual file, which is opened. So you can also change the colors of the links. To be honest, this is quite rarely used, but this can also be done if you find the link, then attribute, then you can actually change the color. I only use standard color, but in case needed to use something else, then you can use link, v-link, or a-link. yeah, then there's such interesting thing like using links to sending email. This is quite interesting thing. Also using the links you can create the emails, but for this case there's lots of configuration to be done to actually be able to use such links. But yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Then for the HTML you also have such thing like anchors, and anchors just basically enable user to jump to a specific place to the website. So two steps are necessary to create an anchor. So firstly, you need to create the anchor itself, then you must create the link to this anchor. So basically means that you have one page and you can just jump from one place to another. And so it basically works in the way that you use A, the anchor itself, then you provide the name, the label, and then you point to the web page. Then you point to it under your web page using such syntax, and then of course the label if you want. And this will just basically navigate you to the place the anchor is defined. So it's something like in the code, as I explained, that would be in programming, that would be a go-to statement. So it works in the same way. Just navigate through the page. Yeah, so that would be that you have like several chapters under your web page, and then you define the anchor to the first, in this case that's the second chapter, and then you create the link, and then you just provide the reference to the anchor. And usually if the reference is just empty, then it means that you just go to the current position. Right. So then there can also be ordered list. So what does it mean? It means that you have the tag OL, and under it you can place the list items. And when you place them, so this will automatically, all the items will automatically be ordered and corresponding index to be provided on the left. Yeah, so you can also provide the type for the attributes, and then using the type you can actually provide the symbol that appears in the list. For example, if it's A, then it's for capital letters. If it's in lowercase, then it's for lowercase letters. I for Roman numericals, and small for lowercase Roman numericals. So basically, using the type, you can actually define what you want to see, how the items are ordered, how the order is defined. And then you can just simply have an ordered list, that's UL, and it's just basically the same list but without the numbering. Without the numbering, just simple list. But you can provide a shape for it under the type, and it allows to change the type of the bullet. So you may have a circle, the square, or the disk. Now we move to more complicated thing, and this is the forms. And so since we talk about web page, we usually understand that the idea for the web pages is that we can move the content from one place to another. So basically this means if we have the input fields under one web page, so we have some input fields there, then there may be such need to transform the data entered under the to these fields. We need to transform it to another page, and to do it we can use the forms. And form means, so we have the start on the form, then we have the end on the form, and so this is the place where you provide information, and then this information may be transferred to another place. But yeah, that's basically related to the information transfer. And yeah, there are two basic components. On that one, that's the shell, the part where user fills, and the script which processes the information. Yeah, so HTML tags used to create the form shell. So using it, you can create actually the text, the boxes, radio buttons, checkboxes, drop-down menus, and so on. So basically, what does it mean? It means that you just have the form, and under the form you can provide some inputs. And the thing I want to highlight here is submit and reset buttons. So what does it mean? You have the start of the form, right? So here you have the form tag form, and you have the end of the form. That will be after the buttons. And you have the button submit. What does it mean? Once you have submit button under the form, it actually means that the data from this form will be submitted, and then the information can be processed. In practice, it usually means that you may have okay, I'll talk about the posts under the form. So it will be created, but it actually means that you provide the data here, then you press submit button, and this actually collects all the data from here and navigates to another place. This can also be just the same place. Like you press buy, then the page is refreshed. Then at the back end you have the code, which maybe transfers it to the database, or sends it by email, or generates the file, whatever it can be. And so this can only be done using the forms. Otherwise, the data will just be lost if it's not under the form. And yeah, so the key point under the form is the form shell. And so the first one is, as I said, form tag. That includes the address of the script which will be processed to form. So basically, under it, you pass the address which will actually be triggered, where the logic will be triggered for all the data there. And then you have the form elements. So that's the text boxes, radio buttons, input fields, and so on. So basically the place where you can put the data, provide some data, and yeah, at the end you have the submit or reset buttons, which actually provides the data, sends it to the server, or just resets the data. And yeah, the key point here is the server, because the idea is that web pages are stored on the computers, so these are the servers, and once the information is sent, then actually the logic is triggered. It's not HTML logic, or it's mostly server-based logic. So the server can be based on Java, can also be based on more standard-based PHP or something like that. Then the corresponding logic will be triggered, and in this logic we will see the data we entered on the web page. So basically, again, 3 steps. First step, we define the form. under the HTML, in the HTML page. Then we place all the elements there. We press submit button. Again, if it's the post, it can be post. Then the data from this form will actually be available under the event triggered on the Java or other language under the request. So basically, we have the form. Form has the elements. We press submit button. Then the request sent. So the request means the request was with all these elements. It is sent to the code, to the server, and the logic is triggered. We can process the data. So what does it mean? It means that again we have form, and we provide the method. So basically, this is the method usually has post. It can be post and get. I mostly use post, so it's just a standard way. Then we have the action, and the action actually points us what needs to be triggered. Because there can be different events, but usually that's URL. Using the URL, we actually provide the path what should be triggered. And we close it, of course, using the closing form tag. Right, so then we move to the input boxes, the text boxes, and to have the inputs we have actually lots of choices in HTML. And the standard one would be input. So it's just the input field, and under input field we can provide the type, if that's text or the number. And so one important thing is name, and so you may have the ID and you may have the name. Maybe I will just finish with these things and then I will move back to name, because this is quite an important thing to understand. And then we have the value. That's the default value for the input once the page is loaded. Size, basically how long this field is, and the max length value. These attributes are optional, but regarding the name, so as I just said, you may have the name of the input field, and you may also have the ID of the input field. And the difference is that ID used it's used under the web page itself. So just you have the web page, then you have the elements, and they have the IDs. And then using the JavaScript logic, you can get them, you can change them, and so on. But you have also the name, and the name, this is the thing. So the name here, this is used when you transform the data to the server. So you have form, and then you submit the data, you move the data to the server, and then when you have the logic on the server, again it can be PHP or Java or whatever it can be, based on your server. Then there you will not see the ID, but you will see the name. So based on the name, you can actually detect this field in the backend on the server, and you trigger the submit method. Right. So this is done, and so name is specified, used to specify identify the box when it processes the form script, when submit the data. Default size, just the size of the box, new characters, and max length, that's the maximum number of characters can be typed in the box. So for example, this will look this way. So that's Okay, that's a little crazy. It's not mentioned, but oh no, it's mentioned here. Yeah, so this is how it looks like. You can define some text here. It's usually done in a different way. I'll explain it a little bit later. But yeah, you have the input field, so basically this is the place where you can put the logic. You can define the type, if it's the text, then you can define the text. If that's the number, you can define the number. Again, it can be integer or also decimal. For the decimal places, you can use the step parameter. And yeah, so this is not displayed here. This is just the name of the field, but the value is displayed, and this is the default value you can see here. One more thing here I would like to comment on is the label for the field. So in this case is defined this way, but normally what we can do, we can provide the ID here, and then we have the tag label for, then we provide the ID, so the ID will be for input field, and then we can actually define the label separately. And this will actually be placed in the same way, but that will be a more stable solution. For the larger text, if you have some notes or you want to really write something seriously, then that we can use text area. Also, name stays here again, because this is the identifier for the text area, for all the fields then in HTML. And here you can provide the rows, number of the rows, the number of the columns, to define the size, the actual size for the text area. Yeah, and you can also provide the wrap attribute that causes the cursor to move automatically to the next line as the user types it. Yeah. Basically, there can be more parameters using the styling for the styling and so on. But yeah, so these are the main parameters. For example, so we define the syntax in bold, and on the next line we define the text area, and so then we can write the text. Yeah, for the input you can also have the checkboxes, and you can also have the radio buttons. So for the radio button, just the same input, just put the type radio and the data, so the default value would be data. So the data is the text that will be sent to the server if button is checked, and label is the text that identifies the button to the user. So that's nothing specific to explain, and it will look this way. Just input. Maybe the only distinguishing thing is the type. So using the type, you can find the radio button or the text or the number or the checkbox. So for the checkbox, the same way as the radio. For the radio buttons, you need to define the corresponding type. And the type would be checkbox. But if you define the group of radio buttons with checkboxes the same name, the user will only be able to select one of the options. So what does it mean? If you have the inputs with the same names, it means that you can only tick one of them. And you can only just tick 2 or more. So using the name, you can just basically identify the selection for the input fields. With the radio button and checkboxes, you can just select one of them. So this can be done when you just define the same names for all of them. We'll have all these examples. I will show you how they work, so let's just start the theory. Don't worry. Okay, then you can also have the drop-down menus, and for the drop-down we use select. And so I can use multiple, but usually for a simple drop-down we use select, and so this is the tag which defines the drop-down field, and under the drop-down field we have the options. So these are just the options for the drop-down selection, so multiple options, and then under the option, so maybe if you have some default options or you actually select, then one of the options, then they will be marked as selected. And the size so specifies the height of the menu lines, and multiple allows you to select more than one option. But yeah, we usually just we have a drop-down list, then we usually select only one option. But yeah, also possible if you want to select multiple. So this will look this way. We have the starting select tag, then closing select tag, and then you have all the values in between them. Yeah. So just the option, default the value, and the label there. Yeah, so then at the end you may have the submit button. And what does it mean? It means that basically you can just put input type submit, but there's also such tag button we use for HTML, and then we also provide the type. And so what does it mean? It means that if you press the button, then the data will be submitted then. But yeah, if you want to say something other, then you can use the attribute value, and this will be, for example, by now. Reset button basically just resets, clears all the parameters from the form, because the buttons, submit buttons and reset buttons, they can only be applied to the form they are located in. So basically means that you have the start of the form and on the form you have the fields there, and then the submit and reset will work only for the fields located in this particular form. Then for the HTML, we also have such things like tables, and so this is just the simple table how we define them. So we have the rows and we have the columns, and it basically can be defined in the way that again we have the starting and closing tag or table, which just defines the start and the ending of the table, and we have some tags. In this case, so first we have the tr tag, which just represents the row. Each row is defined using the starting and closing tag of tr, so the start of the row and the end of the row. Then under it, you can usually have two ways of tag. It's not mentioned here, but you can have the th tag, and this is used for the header elements. Like if we have the column names, then we usually define them not using td but using th. It's needed because basically there's no differences between th and td, but you can so there can be some stylings defined for th or td elements, and then We just want to distinguish them using the tags. Yeah, also there can be some scripts there, usually for the filtering, and then we usually skip the H for the filtering and we use TV. For the tables we can also add border, so just using the border tag. We provide them, just provide how large our border should be. Then you can also use border color, which defines the color of the border. Yeah, then for the dark and for light shading, yeah, that's quite specific. You just work with the stylings there. And for example, this would look this way. You have the table, you define the border, so you can see the border here, and then you have two rows here. So the first row, TR, this one, and start and ending, so this will be from here to here. And then you have two TD's element, so the first column and the second column. The same for the second row, just goes to the next place. Here. For the tables, you can also adjust the width, and basically, width parameter is quite popular for lots of elements. I would say for most of the elements in HTML. So basically, using them, you can actually provide for the width of your element and the element you define. And basically, the width can be provided in different ways. We can provide the pixels, we can provide such things like EM or REM, and you can also provide the percentages. So let's say that you provide that the width of the table is 100%. It means that the table will be just in the full size of the page, the full width of the page. Yeah, and also keep in mind that the cell cannot be smaller than its content, and if you make the table wider than the browser window, user will not be able to see parts of it. Yeah, for HTML it's also, that's mostly about CSS stylings, but please understand that that's so when we change the actual size of the page, like if we work with mobile versions of the web pages, then keep in mind that the sizing may be different there, and of course the content is different. Because of course nowadays you can see that the desktop version is different than the mobile version. That's mostly defined by CSS, and it means that for example such parameters like the width, they may have a serious impact on how the page looks on the mobile version of the site and on the desktop version. So it may have a serious impact on what the user sees. So you can also center the table using align center. So that's first of all center the table. You can also align left or right if you want. And you can also, it's possible to drop text around the table. So that's the technique used to keep images and captions together with an article. Yeah, and you can do it again using the line left parameter. Also, if needed, you can use a line right. Yeah, then you can also add space around the table. So it can be horizontal space or vertical space. So just provide corresponding tag here, and this will add space. Yeah, then there's such interesting thing like colon span. So basically from the definition point of view, you can see here what we have. We have the rows, so this should not have a serious impact, but what you can have. Let's imagine that you have one, or in this case you have two fields, two columns on the first row, but you may have, let's say, one column on the second row. So basically, yeah, of course in this case the structure will not be correct if you don't have another column here, but what you can do, so let's say you want to have like 1-2 columns on the first row and just one column which unites both columns on the second row. So to do it, we have such thing like col span, and it actually means that so we have column you define it using TD, right? And then using the col span parameter, you actually provide how many cells are occupied within this particular cell. So have just one column here, but using col span, you can actually provide that. Let's say if m is 2, then you say that this particular cell occupies 2 cells on the table. So this is what can be done, and of course it can also be done using the CSS styles, and we'll a little bit later we will take a look on the bootstrap classes, and there's such thing like, so using bootstrap you can actually, it usually works in the way that your page itself is defined into the 12, let's say, we can imagine them as the columns, so basically 10 sectors, and so using CSS classes we can actually split the content on these, how many, we can define how many such columns are occupied by the corresponding elements in your HTML. So that's can be extended not only for the tables but also for any content on your page. Yeah, the same also can be done with the rows, but yeah, that can be done as well. But yeah, so basically that's the same thing, but using the rows. So basically it means that one actual element can occupy several rows. Can also be done, and then there's such thing like aligning the cell content. So by default it's aligned horizontally to the left and vertically in the middle. But using v-align, the direction of the vertical alignment can be changed if we put it at the top. If we define it as top, middle, bottom, then it will be aligned in a corresponding way. Yeah, and also using the align, it's simple. We align the horizontal direction if it's center, left, or right. And also we can control the cell spacing. So that's the space between the cells, and this can be done using the attribute cell spacing and cell padding as well. And then we can also create the inner table, so it just basically means that we have the table inside the table. It can be done like you have, let's say that you have the cell, and inside the cell you can actually create another table. that can be defined as well. And it's better to test both tables separate, which not just basically mix everything, then you may have some issues there. And don't nest too many tables, because at the end this will trigger the chaos in the code. But yeah, also how the tables can be used. Tables can be also used in the way that you just want to split the content you have into different sectors. So let's say that you just want to have several texts, and you just want to split them into different rows. So then it can be done, and also the columns, so it can be done using the tables. So does it mean? It means that the tables is not just a simple way to define the table, but you can also define the positions for your content of different elements in that page. So this can also be done using the tables. In addition, you can also change the color of the cell. So this can be done using UG color, background color, so if needed. You can also then divide your table into column groups. So let's say that it's not structural and non-structural. For the structural groups, control where dividing lines are drawn. For non-structural groups, the control, so the dividing lines are not drawn. And they both let you format your entire column or cells at once. But to be honest, this grouping is not used so often. But you can do it. We can do it. So we define the column group. So it can be using column group. It can be done using column group tag after the table tag, and then we can just separate the columns into different groups there. So then you can also define the table into horizontal sections. So that allows to format corresponding rows at once. So it can be horizontal section like T head to define the header, then T body to define the body of the table, and T foot to define the footer of the table. Of course, before the first TR tag of the section. Then you can control the line breaks. So unless you specify them, the browser will divide the lines and cells as it sees how to fit them. Using no-rop attributes replaced within TD tag that forces the browser to keep all the text in cell in one line. So that would be this way. So basically, inside the table cells, you can the browser may just wrap the content there. So it means that you just simple wrapping of the content. Using no wrap, it will just not allow the browser to do it. The last thing, so if you can imagine a way to lay out your pages, it's possible using HTML. And when in doubt, then use HTML references. Okay, so that was a little bit fast, but the main theory for HTML, and then after the break we will start doing some examples. Right now let's have to break. So let's continue, and now we'll move to the practical side. So first of all, before we start, I would like to show you basically the thing that will always help you. So first of all, when you go to the web page, any web page, so again, in this essence, any web page is written in HTML, and usually these HTMLs are generated in some way, so all the content here is generated and written in HTML. And really helpful thing to understand the structure of HTML content is using the inspection of the current page. And to do it, you need to press right click, and so if you're in Chrome browser, that's inspect. In other browsers it looks it's named similar way, and then you have this screen where you can actually see the HTML content. So you can also in theory you can also open it in just a separate file, but basically here what you can see, you have such two buttons. So this button is used to point to the actual element. So when you select the button, then you just navigate to any place on the web page. Let's say that's the services. So you navigate, you press on it, and you can see how it is defined under the element, under the web page. So basically any element you can check here is defined in HTML. So here you can see that's h3 tag, we have the ID, the class, that's a CSS class, we'll talk about them a little bit later, and then you have the content. So basically every time you want to write something in HTML and you have the place to copy from, you can take a look on the inspection element. This may be really helpful, but that's mostly about the structure of the document. The key thing is also the key thing here is the stylings, and this is related to CSS. We'll talk about it a little bit later, and the JavaScript to handle the actions we do here. But yeah, that's maybe the second step for us. Right now we can start to do some coding, and before you, I already done, but before you do it, again, once more remark, for the HTML coding, there are lots of IDEs. I mostly use, if it's since my web page is built on PHP server, then I use PHP my admin. You can also use Visual Studio Code, something like that. But basically, Eclipse also has such features to edit HTML documents, and most IDEs nowadays have such features, even Notepad++. So basically, you can select whatever you want. But yeah, well, since we now use in our course, we use Eclipse, then we can keep using Eclipse. But before you start working on HTML documents in Eclipse, you should install the tool which will actually using which you can edit HTML documents. So first we'll go to Eclipse Marketplace, then you'll you need to type HTML editor. So let it load. Then we type HTML editor. And so yeah, here you can basically select whatever you want, but I selected the first one. I think that should be fine. And I installed it. So once it is installed on your computers, you can start working on HTML pages. So I will then create a new package here. So it will be, oh no, it's Java package. I don't really need to create a Java package, so I will create just a new folder here. Yeah, I think that should be fine. So there will be no Java code right now for this, but we'll place in the same source folder. So it will be, I will name it HTML samples. And I will. So then we create the file. So basically for HTML, the extension should be HTML for HTML files. And basically any browser, actually there can also be other types like PHP, or also for for example PHP, and at the end it will generate the HTML content. So yeah, that's also another point. Again, so in basic we use HTML files as the content, but usually on the server side the content is generated, and to generate the content there are other file extensions used, like again it can be PHP, and for different frameworks it can be different, and the thing here is that it should be parsed from somewhere. So if you have PHP, it should be executed on the server. You cannot just simply execute PHP file without any by default. Yeah, it should be done by server, by some parser, and that's why. So again, here we just simply create the HTMLs without any usual generation, but on practice the code should be stored on the server, which has the option to parse, to trigger the PHP or Java logic. Java, that's servlets, PHP files, and for PHP servers and so on. Yeah, so that's why when we will create some web applications, and for this purpose we'll need to use the server which will parse our Java logic there. But yeah, so in this case we have a simple file, and usually almost all the pages start with index file. So it's usually called index, and in this case simply we can define it as index.html. So once it is done, you'll have this. So this is again text file. This is a simple text file where we can type the text and write the document. So let's start with some simple things. I can define document type HTML. That's not so really important this time. That's just for the marker. And right now we can start typing HTML logic. So here we define that we have the start of HTML content. So we can have the header part. Here we can define the title. You can use control spaces there. And so the title would mean, usually there's also for websites we use localization. So if you type some text, it can be different in different languages, so if you just simply type it this way, so say my title, then there's no option. There's no option to translate it, since you just hard-coded it here, so it won't be translated. For the translations, there are different options to use. If the HTML is generated, and you just put the text on the generation, so if the text is generated, it can be generated by any code, it's PHP or Java, then so that's the way. Using this code, you can find translations. Also, another way is to do it using the JavaScript scripting, and this is used for different frameworks. Like it can be AngularJS or also Laravel, Symfony, and so on. For such frameworks, there is the special tag. It looks something like this. Sometimes it looks like this, and this will navigate your but this will retrieve the logic, not the logic, but the text from the special file. And it can be different for different frameworks. It can be something like this, using double curly brackets, but then that may be different. It's something like this, based on the server, the server, and of course the framework you're working with. So it can be something like this, and this will actually take the title from my title element from the corresponding translation file. But that will be a simple case if you just define it this way, so there's no way here this can be translated in any way. But that's maybe the next level, so right here we can just simply stick with what we have. So we have the title here, and right now let's define the body. So we define the body, and let's define heading. So that will be this is my first web page. And let's add text. You can use the paragraph. You can just simply use PR. That means mind break. And so I'm so excited. And so then, right here in Java, not Java, but in Eclipse, we can just open it locally as well. So in Eclipse you have web browser option. So it means that you can just open with it. So please open with, and this will open this HTML file as a new web browser. So that's Eclipse, special Eclipse web browser, but you can also open it using any browser you want. That's up to you. And in this case you can see that exactly this file is open, and so here we have text. And also BR in this case, it's not needed because H1 actually defines all the line breaks. But that's up to us. What else you can see here? You can see that my title is displayed on the top. So that's actually it actually defines the title of our current page on the browser. What else we can do? We can also define the icon for this page. And yeah, let's just download the icon. Let's say that will be information icon. So we can download information icon. Maybe we can take something like, we can try to take this one. So let me save that. Then I will place it in space, so it means that the files will be located here. So go to source, HTML examples, and oh, sorry, that's cheapy. Oh, no, that won't be great. So yeah, when we use the icons, we better use PNG icons, because this will have the, so it's not in this case, but the background right here will already be transparent. So let's rather be page logo. I can name it more interestingly. Let's say information icon. And it's should be placed here a moment. Yeah, it's why is it not saved? That was crazy. Okay, let's check it again. Should be again, so that was this one. Can I press save? Oh wait, no, sorry, that was under presentations. My fault, sorry. We should save it here. Now it is here, and if we refresh, I think it should also, yeah, it should also appear here. And so what we can do, we can, under the header of course, so since this is related to the page definition, we can define the link tag, and here we can provide shortcut. So that's the attribute. And yeah, in this case, when we have multiple, so we have the attribute relation, and we may have some multiple values for it. In this case, we say that the relation is the shortcut and the icon. So we separate them using the spaces. So using the spaces, we separate multiple elements there. That's mostly used also for the CSS classes. Like when we define the class, we have multiple CSS classes. Each class is separated within the space. So this is done, and then I provide the type. The type is image PNG, and the reference to it is info icon. Okay, now I can close the tag. Right, hopefully this was correct. Let's open this in browser. So right here a moment. Let's open it. Oh yeah, and yeah, so in Eclipse it does not work normally, but when you just open it in, let's say, Chrome, then you'll see that the icon appears on the top on your page. Yeah, these are the first tags, and wait. So that's the main just some small things here. Alright, then we can also define several paragraphs here. Let's say that this is the first paragraph. Grab, and then we can find a second paragraph. So this will look just this way. So we have just two paragraphs, but please note that if you do something like this, I want to have another one, let's say one break. So then you just, so here you enter them like, so you enter line break here, but this line break will not be represented on this. We can simply rule out the page here, and you can see that there's no line break here comparing what we have here, because the line breaks cannot just simply be recognized if we just press enter. In the file we should have BR, so the only option to do it, maybe in this case BR is not needed because heading already does all this stuff, but we can use BR tag here, and when we run page here, we can see that it is moved to the next line. So using BR tag we can achieve it. Yeah, so for the headings, we can have different sizing, as I said. So for H1, that's the main header part. So here we move on. So that will be the second heading, and you will see that the size for H2 is smaller. And so you can see that the size is smaller. We can do the same for other tags. You see that the size will be smaller, smaller, and smaller. Yeah. So that's just the size of using H and number. We define the size for the headings. Right. So then we can define the link. So let's say that this will be ref, and here I can provide the link, let's say to AutoContext, and here I provide the text stored on the link. I can say navigate to Auto. So if we run it down, press on Auto, and yeah, it does not recognize, it just thinks that this is the file name, of course, and that's why we need to provide the full link. Provide the full link using HTTP, otherwise this will not work. So go back to run it again, and now it should navigate to order there. Okay, maybe let's this Echo's browser maybe is not so stable. Let's use simple Chrome browser. Okay, it's navigating and we are here. Yeah. So that is done. Let's move on. Then we can also have the images, as I said. So let's get some images. Maybe random image. Get random image and let it be the elephant. It can be JPG, and so what we can do, we can place the image here. So that will be image. Then I'll provide the source, and the source is, let's refresh here, set random JPG. We don't need to have a closing tag here, and yeah, maybe let's just use Chrome browser because again it's more stable. And here we can see that here we have the image, but we want to change the size of it, so I can say that yes, we can play around with the height and the width here. So let's say we have 50-50. Okay, I think in this case we can, let's just run it here because this will be faster. Okay, so you can see that the size is this, and yeah, you can also see there is no line breaks here in between the link and the image because we did not provide a line break here, so we can do it. And now they will be located on different lines. Yeah, we can just play around here with the sizes. So let's say that something like this. Sizes are usually used for the icons as well. Not only for the icons, sizes are used everywhere. But let's say if you have the icons, then you can just simply use the same size for all the icons, and if they have the same, if they're placed in the same context, and then using the sizes, you can find the same size for all of them. Yeah. So this is about the size. You can also place a alternative, but we will not use it. Yeah, so this is about the images, and let's just basically move one by one. What did we have before? And include the wings. Yeah, let's maybe move to the anchors. So as I said, for the anchors, we can create the reference to the current page. So maybe let's navigate to the first paragraph. So we define the anchor here. Yeah. Define the anchor here. We define the name, and the name is first paragraph. Put the closing tag. Closing tag here, and and here we can provide the reference to it. So that would be. So we do not need to have it here. We can just simply do it this way, because the navigation. Yeah, for the closing tag, the same as for XML, you can close the tag this way, so it means that nothing in between the closing, opening and closing tag to be provided here. Yeah, so here we put the reference, and the reference to be to the first paragraph. There's no counter space here. So there's the wording here. Yeah, they actually that seems to be fine. So I have the first paragraph here, and let's say navigate to the first paragraph. Okay, let's run it. Yeah, it just basically navigates to the first paragraph, but in this case there's nothing to scroll. This page is too small, maybe let's do it in Chrome. Let's do it in Chrome. And yeah, you can see that this tag has appeared here. Let's try, yeah, so when you just have a larger page, you navigate to the first paragraph, and then you place here. One thing to see here is, so you may notice here that the actual query of the actual link is changed. So if previously we had this link is just a simple page, then if we add query here, this will mean the same if we press on this link. So basically, what does this link do? It just simply adds the parameter to the query, to the search, to the URL, and this actually navigates to the corresponding place where this tag is placed. Right, so that's about the anchor tag. Yeah, let's move to the order. Let's move to the order twists, and so let's say we have order twist here. So then we have list item here. So this is first item. This is the second item. Okay. Right. So now we can open it using the web browser. You can see that the items are listed, and as I mentioned, we can list them in a different way. We can provide type, and type, let's say, it can be A as well. So it means that this will, the numbering will be just like A, B, C, D, F, G, and so on. Lowercase, the same for A. For Roman numbers, we can place I. Okay, so this will go to 1, 2, 3, and so on. Right. Yeah. So then we can move to the forms. Oh no, maybe let's start with the tables and then we can move to the form. So basically, how to define the table. Let's define somewhere here. So let's say we have the table and we have the rows. So using tr, we define the row. So we define the row, and now we need to define the elements. I'll start with th. As I said, th. This is the this is used for the header columns. Header columns. So let's say that will be column 1. Then we can say column 2 and column 3. So now this will be the table with just the 3 columns. We don't have any border, so maybe we can add the border as well. Define the size for the border. Okay. Let's have a smaller border. And just play around and see what we have. Yeah, okay, so we have it. Okay, so these are the header header elements, and you can see that they are written in bold. And yeah, this is specifically for th. Th elements will be written in bold. For the usual elements, we define them as tt. So that will be in cell 1. Not th, but td. Cell 1. Then we can name it as cell. Next one will be cell 2. Cell 3. And then the same for other rows. Yeah, please note that the formatting is really important in HTML, just to distinguish, just to understand the format. Because without the formatting of HTML document, you won't see that you have the row here, okay, and then under the row I have the elements, the columns. So otherwise, if you don't have these spacings here, right here, so you may see something like this, and of course this will be absolutely non-readable. You want, of course, from the program point of view, from the browser point of view, browser will understand it, but of course when you read something like this, you want to understand that this is the part of the table, this is the part of the row, and so on. So for HTMLs, it's very important to have all these to have this formatting there. 4, 5, 6, and then we may have 7, 8, 9. And this will look this way. Okay. So you just have all the cells there. You can write, type any content. Type any content there. Excuse me. Yeah, regarding the column span, as I said, we can do the following way. If we define the column here, and we define column span tag, we say that by default it's 1, of course, so it means that this cell will occupy 1 column. In this case, it means that this will occupy 3 columns. So let's say large cell. Large cell, and you will see that this will just occupy all the cell here. Line content say center. Line center, let's say, yeah, then the content will be aligned to the center. So otherwise, by default, it's aligned to the left. And basically, yeah, we can actually align all the content here to center. Otherwise, this way. Oh yeah, we actually want the whole table on the center, also as an option if needed. But there's shortcut align content. Still now. Okay, no, it didn't work. Okay, we'll take a look a little bit later on it. That's related to the styling, so that's maybe the part that will be the part of CSS topic. So right now we can just simply align all the elements there. Right, then if you just simply do this way, so let's just say that you have the large column, but you just have one, you do not define column span, then you will have the ugly content here. So you have something like this. Yeah, it will be positioned at the second position, but you will have the empty spaces, just empty space here, and that's why we should use column span. The same can be done using the row span. Let's say we use 2 rows. Again, this will not look pretty here. It's so second cell. Yeah, in this case, basically for the row span, yeah, in fact we rarely use row span, we mostly use column span. That's it. Just basically, okay, maybe let's keep row span for now. We mostly use column span, and I used experience column span. It's just simple. We can define how many cells this will occupy. So using column span we can define different structures. Let's say that we can also have something like this. So we have the usual first, row, the usual cell, and then we may have larger cell. The larger cell we define a column stem, saying that it occupies 2 columns, and we align the center as well. And this will look this way. Just 1 column here, and you have actually 2 columns with 1 cell. With 1 cell here. Yeah, what else for the tables? So we can say t-header. Say header table, and then yeah, maybe usually we escape. We not escape, but we don't use the t-header or t-body, but yeah, if needed, it's really okay. That's a little bit different thing, but too many browser windows. Yeah, so if we use t-hat, then that's in this case we maybe let's use another table. So instead of just providing the header row, let's say we may have we just can use t-hat. So that will just simply mean that the content here will be defined as the header. Will be defined as the header, and so under t-body we just simply define everything we have here. So basically there won't be any difference. There should not be any differences at this moment. And let's say that we enter all these things at the footer, so that will be default. And we did not provide a border, sorry. But yeah, the result should be the same. The result should actually at this point be the same. Yeah, this is what you can see, and maybe let's add the space, put the line break in between these 2 tables. You can see that there's no differences, but the question for you may be, why do we actually need some such tags if there's no difference? The point here is that this is quite specific for HTML, is that using the tags we can actually then define the separate logic. Not the logic, but separate, that's mostly for the stylings. And of course the logic, the stylings, we can define for the different tags. So what does it mean? It means that since we have t-hat tag here, then it's most about CSS, but we'll talk about CSS. Then for all the t-hats elements, we can have the separate styling. So I don't know, but maybe let's define the stylings here. So maybe that will be a short introduction to CSS. Actually define them under the body, not that should be done after, normally it's done after the body. Moment, no, should be unsettled. Okay, so let's define the style. We can define the style and it shows invalid location, but no, the styles should normally be placed under the body. And okay, define something like this. Can define t-hat and okay, then not sure why the formatting is not working here correctly, but let's maybe try. That should normally work, but okay, let's see. So we define the background color and let's say that it can be red. Let's maybe check no. Okay, that's interesting. A moment, let me think. So maybe let's do it this way. Let's do it this way. Oh yeah, and now it works. Yeah, so that's the introduction to CSS. Style, basically, what I did here, that's styles I used to, yeah, I think that should be fine if I introduce CSS to you in this way. So basically, here at the end of the document, it's usually under the body section, it can be also moved in a separate file. We have the styles, and under the styles we can actually define some separate styles for different elements. And in this case I define the style for t-hat. And what does it mean? It means that for t-hat section, in this case what I defined that for t-hat sections, all the sections under the document, we will have the background color red. And this is what you see here. But yeah, that's maybe the answer why we may need to use something like this, because for such elements, not only for t-hat, like in this case, but also for all the different types, like the footer, t-body, and t-header, we may have different stylings defined in this way. So for t-header, would say we have background color red. For t-body, well, it started working. But yeah, formatting still not in best shape, but okay. So maybe. No, I'm not sure why Checkbox is not formatting all these things correctly, but okay, that's maybe not a huge problem. Other editors do it normally. So let's say then for the t-body we'll have the yellow background color, and for t-foot we will have the background color of the purple. So it means that using these sections, t-body, that's considered as, by default, if you do not provide any tag here, then this will be considered as t-body. So basically using t-hat, t-body, and t-foot, we can actually define the corresponding background color for all the sections. Not only the background color, but the stylings for different sections. and let's say the color should be white. So using the color, we actually can provide the color of the text written there. And so that's the foot, the head, and the body can help us to write the different styles for different lines. Okay, so let's have a break now, and after the break we'll have more examples. Okay. Alright, let's move on. And now we can create the form with the fields. Oh yeah, also I forgot to put the ways to navigate in between the pages, so I think we can do it now. So I think we can create another file here. So this will be the input page. So HTML first. And we can copy paste the header from here. And I can first. And then I can navigate, let's say from here. So, create the link here. So that will be the link to the page. So navigate to input page, and so then if we run this file now, and this will move me to the input page. Okay. Alright, so let's create the form then. Form starting. In this case, I will not provide any special actions to be done here because we don't have the server logic here. So at this point, I will just simply keep it as is, and now we can add the fields. So let's start. First, I'd like to start with the input field. And let's say that's the first name. That will be text. And yeah. And also do on that and the ID for this. That's the new first. So when we run it now, you see that we have this input where I can type some text. Yeah, it was not mentioned, but I said it was not mentioned in the presentation, but as I said, we can create the labels for the input fields. And to create the label, we need to use the label tag, and then we provide for, and here we need the ID. So, because, so for example, when we use the name, let's say first name. This will not work. And you can see that it plays somewhere after the input, but if we do it this way. Okay, so that's but yeah, we need to have the ID here. So it basically constructs the correct label for point, and yeah, this should be for ID. So you can also see the help here. There's no help. But yeah, okay. It doesn't matter. There should be the ID here. And here I can say this first name. And then now we can have it here. So the same you can do for the last name. So yeah, let's make this a bit better. Okay, that's the formatting provided by Excel. Well, not Excel, but Eclipse. I don't really like it, but there's nothing to do. Okay, let's use PR then here, and now we have the next line. What's the problem here is? The problem here is that the input is not formatted. As you can see, we have these, so there's some, so it's not aligned. To align it, what we can do, so, and here we can use the tables, so, and actually, yeah, of course we can use CSS classes, but as another option would be that we have just, here we have the table with 2 columns. And so the simple solution here would be that we define the table, then we define the rows for the table, excuse me. So we define the row, tr, we define closing tag for row, same here, and of course we need to define the columns, otherwise it won't work without the columns. Okay, seems good. Same here. And after that, content should be aligned correctly. So now we can see that everything is pretty much aligned and it looks great. So here we can check in the tables. Then let's have the drop-down menu. So now we use the row, and I will have to so here we will have the drop-down menu. So this means that we'll have the selection. Select first, select. And select. So what's the issue here? Oh, of course, closing tag. That's not closed here. That's crazy. Everything seems to be fine here. Okay, let's reopen it. I'm not really sure why it's goes this way. Okay. So let's try again. It's just a small back. Whoops. And yeah, so now we can have selection option here. And right now we can do it this way. We can provide selection options here. So we have first option. Now let's say that we have the cities. City. And so I'm going to find a label or city. Okay, find a label. And then we can have several options there. let's say this is Riga. And let's say it is London, Berlin, and that's all. So let's see how does it work. You can have the options, and now you can select them under the drop-down list, just using the select and then the options. What you can do, you can select something by default, and that should work this way. Let's see. Yeah. So if you type selected, then this option will be selected by default. So you can always create empty option. So then it will be then this way. Then this will be this will be empty option. So if you just want to select nothing, then you simply keep empty option. But yeah, for drop-down list, empty option is also the option. So in this case, we need to use it. So that's for select. And regarding the select, yeah, you can also have multiple options if you want. So maybe let's have another select. And here we'll have a single function. So we may do just as is here and have multiple selection here. For city, what does it mean? Means that so here you can select multiple choices, so that will be press Ctrl, and then you can select multiple from here, and by pressing Ctrl, and then you can select multiple. What else do we have? Checkboxes, already buttons. Okay, let's move on. So let's say that let's gender, for example. We'll have a row. So we have columns here. And, let's use we can use the radio buttons. So we're going to inputs, so we will have 3 radio buttons here. And so that will type radio button, radio. So that will be man. So I can actually find it this way. Let's do a quick check. So this will work. And so yeah, let's have more options here. New type man. And yeah, let's do that. And sounds and then unknown. For example, so if you just define them this way, then you can select all of them, and they won't be linked with each other. But what you can do, if you add the name, let's just simply change it this way, but then we will define the name, so we can define the name gender, then define the name gender for all the inputs we have here, and then this will work in the way that it will not allow you to select multiple. So using the name, you can actually define what to select. Them. But yeah, you cannot define the same ID because this won't be correct. IDs should be different because IDs are simply unique identifiers for the fields used by JavaScript, also used by HTML, some internal things that. So it should not. Yeah, end tag is not in, but we better add it here. Alright, so this is done as well, and the same can be done for checkboxes. Checkboxes. So for checkboxes, let's say that we can. What kind of information can we provide for the checkboxes? Okay, well, let's just put something which are vaccinated. Okay. And yeah, maybe in this case we can just simply, for the checkboxes we can apply the same logic as that is for the radio buttons. So it means that we can, if we define the same names, then you can select only one of them. Yeah, so we can do it. In this case, we'll just simply provide the input and just one input, and the type will be checkbox. Checkbox and yeah, of course, always it's better to provide the name. If you need the ID as well, this will look this way. You simply click checkbox and that's it here. Okay, so that's about the checkbox. Then what else we can do? We can provide the comments section. Oh no, maybe let's add one more field. Let's have the age. So age, and this should be input. Should have the type number. Have the type number, so we can have the age. but what's the problem here is that we allow decimal here, which should not be allowed. Should not be allowed. Yeah, there's no integers here, but yeah, there's a number. So what you can do, you can define this step, and if you define step 1, so let's check how does this work. We'll define step 1. Oh, so actually, we can also type the text, but this will not be really correct in this case. So yeah, but that's mostly can be controlled using the CSS. So that should look differently. That should look different. Maybe let me try to open it in Chrome, because for the numbers this should look differently. So that's that to open. Oh yeah, that was quite a specific thing for them. Yeah, I'm not sure, but Echo's browser does not work correctly in this case. You should normally see that you cannot enter the text here. You can enter E, that's the only red letter, but you can enter only numbers here. And using these, so here you can. So I just defined the step. It means that I entered just increment or decrement by one step. Yeah, so that's what I defined here. How to define it that we enter the integers only? That's quite an interesting question. Basically, this cannot really be controlled from HTML directly. You should it can only be controlled using JavaScript. We will later check how it can be done, but yeah, that's to be done using JavaScript normally. Right, so that's it. And now let's move to the text area. Let's move to the text area. This will be the next one. So here I said, let's say notes we have, and I can find the text area here. Right, so I'm going to back to use a Chrome browser. It works more stable. And here I have the notes. For text area, I can expand it as I want. So the default, by default, it has is the following size, calculated by HTML. But what we can do, we can change the number of the rows. By default, let's say we can have 10 rows and let's say 5 columns. In this case, the size will be different by default. You can see, but again we can change it as we want using our own actions here. Alright, so this is done here. And the last thing here are the buttons. For the buttons, maybe let's do it after the table. So modify the buttons, and I say that maybe type something like save, and we'll have another button which will be cancel. So refresh, we have all these buttons. In fact, yeah, what you can see by default, so you are inside the form. When you press the button, you can see that the page is refreshed. So what does it mean? So this is what you just seen. Page is refreshed because the buttons are pressed outside. Buttons are located inside the form. If we put them outside the form, we basically see that they have no effect, because they are outside the form. So that's also the tricky point of the buttons, that by default, if they're located outside the form, then they just do nothing. If they're located inside the form, then by default they do the submit. So anytime you're pressing them, they will do the submit. So what does it mean? It means that the form, so this form usually has the action. It can be the navigation to the some kind of test page. Let's say that the method is post. Instead of post. And yeah, put the buttons there. And the buttons here. And now if you press save, then we can see that it navigates us to the test page. But of course we don't have such test page, and that's why there's nothing to navigate to. Yeah, but that's by default. By default, tab can be navigated. Can be defined here. So if we type button, then I think, yeah, it should have no effect. So by default, it's not button. Yes, maybe it sounds a little bit crazy, but by default, if the button is placed inside the form, it's tagged as not the button, but as the submit. So that's the default one. If we put button, then it does nothing. If we put submit, then now we can see that it will submit the form and try to navigate to the test page. Cancel. In this case, since we have not defined anything for cancel, it just also does the submit. But if we define reset here, then so it let's say the name is cancel. It clears all the values here. Yeah, so basically we have the form here. We typed some values here. Then let's just add some values here. Not press cancel, everything will be cleared. Yeah, but this will clear and save only the content located here. So if you type something outside the form, so let's say that let's say I have input field here. So outside the form. Let's have a little field. The title same as the text. Then the content of this will not be affected. So here is the text. So if I press cancel, then the content outside the form is not affected. Yeah, so that's basically the concept of the forms. It's quite important, thing for web development, because when you transfer the data from one place to another, when you send the data to another place, then you will only send the data located under the form from where you sent the data. Other data will not be sent and will not be available to the receiving side. Okay? So what does it mean? It means that when you right here I type some data, I select some values here, something like that, something else. Then when you press save, then this data will be available when this page is opened. So again, we will not do it right now, but we'll do it a little bit later. But when this page is triggered, then on the triggering point, the data will be available. Will be available for this from the form. Will be available before this page is loaded. But the field which is located outside the form, it will not be available to this page. Right. So what else do we have here? So what else can we take a look on today from HTML point of view? Let me check. Those we've gone through. Title is checked again. Yeah, maybe the next. One more thing. Maybe we will not really go through it, but I would like to mention is the tag which is not we have not gone through it today, but maybe that's the most popular tag in HTML, and the let me open this HTML editor. The most popular tag, I think, is called div tag. Div tag, that's the really most popular tag in, I guess that's the most popular tag in HTML. In fact, what does it do? It does actually nothing in general, but it's maybe I would say that's the most powerful tag. Yeah, and you can see that it affects nothing. But it's the most powerful tag, and it's the most powerful tag because it actually is used for the styling definition. And again, since we already moved a little bit to styling, the same as we have here. So I have div tag. I press. Let's use two. Yeah, maybe right now I will introduce a little bit CSS to you, and then the next time on Monday we will start talking about CSS. So yeah, we have this div tag here. We have div tag here. So the table and the closing of the table. So again, this will not, if I just simply define the tags here, this will not affect page at all. But what can I do using the tags? Basically, the tags, this tag, div tag, it actually defines, it separates different content, and it grouping the content in one way. So, for example, if we have div here and div here, so this will be the same. But what can I do? I can use the ID. I can use the ID for both tags, and then I can define the JavaScript logic, which will then be triggered for this div only, let's say. Or what can I do as well? Maybe the most popular definition is CSS classes. So using the CSS, we already checked these tags, but what can we also have? Let's say we can have test1. I will define test1 tag, and this would be, say, font family. Let's say fantasy. Font family. Let's say we have test2. So that will be font family. Something like this. And now I define CSS classes. So these are called CSS classes, and I can put the CSS class here. It would be test1, and I can put CSS class under this div. This will be test2. So I say document. I check here, and you can see that under the first div, all the content is has one font, and under another div we have another font, and other document is not touched. So basically, using the div tags, we can actually define the separate. We can define the styles and also the logic for one specific section. So this is a really helpful thing for the constructing of HTML pages. Okay, so I think that's regarding the first things. There are also lots of different other things we'll go through next time. And so right now I would like to give you one assignment. You can do it individually, just for yourself. So this point, yeah, I will send the assignment. Not send, but I will attach the assignment to the Discord channel, so a moment. So this is this one. So I will just put it under the, let's say, under the materials. That should be fine. So it will not be just for the grade, it will be just for yourself, just for individual work, just to touch HTML by yourself. So this is, I just attached the file there, and so there are two assignments. Right now, let's just do the first one. Here's the first assignment. So here we simply need to create one page, HTML page with just some content there. The second assignment, so it's related to CSS styles. Maybe let's keep it for today. We'll do it next time. But yeah, for you, please. So that's mostly for yourself. That's not for the crate or something like that. Just it's for you to touch HTML a little bit. Yeah. So yeah, it's XHTML you can use, but yeah, you can just simply use HTML without X. That should be fine as well. So yeah, please then try it yourself. Yeah, you can also try some things we did today. We've done today, using the forms, images, and all different things here. So just try it yourself. Check how it works for you. You can play around, changing some properties there. So that's it's always good to do. Yeah. So, and then as usually, if you have any questions, then please let me know. And yeah, in addition, I haven't mentioned about the upcoming home tasks. Regarding the upcoming home tasks, we already gone through lots of things, in fact. So we can actually do the activity moment. Let me quickly check. So regarding the exceptions, it's activity 08, and was it given or not? I think no, it was not given. No. So yeah, then regarding the exceptions, we then to activity 08. So that would be let's say until the end of the month. So that would be the 30th of April. That should be fine. Activity 08. And that's about the exceptions. And then we also gone through the Java database connectivity. So that's the 13th, and this one to be done. Be the 8th of May. Oh, but this will be fine. That's activity 13. Java database connectivity. Okay, let's check. Yeah. And regarding extra activities. So the last one is extra 06, so it's, yeah, there's no extra 07. Okay, maybe right now I will not give you any of these activities. Let's just keep with them just simple activities without extra. Okay, so that's it. Alright, so I think that's it for today. Then you can try to create some HTML pages by yourself. And as usual, if you have any questions, then please write me. And of course, have a nice weekend to everyone, and meet you then on Monday. Bye. Have a nice weekend.